Welcome to CreepLine, where the most chilling stories are told from the depths of the ocean. Today, you'll join me in exploring the world of divers, those who face their deepest fears as they venture into deadly and mysterious waters. 3 stories will take you to places where humans were never meant to tread. Deep Sea Night. A group of divers explores a sunken shipwreck, only to discover it is a trap created by tormented souls. Descent into Hell. An unexplored underwater cave brings eerie noises and footprints that don't belong to the living. Underwater Grave. While surveying a World War II wreck, divers uncover a terrifying secret about spirits forever trapped beneath the sea. If you love creepy and mysterious stories, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Every subscription is a huge encouragement for me to keep sharing spine-chilling tales like these. Now, let's dive in and uncover the secrets hidden beneath the ocean. Late at night, the moonlight silently cast its glow upon the still ocean. Jack, an experienced diver, stood on the deck of the ship, gazing into the distance. He felt the chill of the breeze against his skin, but it wasn't the cold of the sea. The cold within him stemmed from an unexplained anxiety. Tonight, the mission was unlike any other routine dive. They would descend into an area that had been abandoned for years, where shipwrecks from decades ago lay sunken in eternal darkness. With him was Lisa, a new member of the team, full of ambition and questions about the unknowns of the deep sea. She couldn't hide her nervousness. Her eyes were always directed toward the shadowy outline of the shipwreck looming in the darkness. Mark, the team leader, who never showed fear, stood beside Jack and pointed toward the night sea. "Don't let what's down there distract you," Mark said in his calm, deep voice. "The sea is your friend, but it can also be your enemy." Jack turned to look at Lisa. Her eyes were full of unease, but she said nothing. This dive wasn't for a standard survey, but to uncover a mystery. Many had gone and never returned, and stories of shipwrecks and missing divers had spread through the diving community like an invisible warning. "We won't be like them," Jack said, trying to reassure her. But deep inside him, an unnamed fear was growing. There was something beneath the sea's depths that didn't want to be disturbed, and they were about to do just that. They prepared and descended into the dark water, as still as an endless abyss. But with each step they took, it felt like they were getting closer to something no one dared to speak of. A curse that lingered here, and today, it would awaken them. The surface of the water began to part beneath the ship's deck as the 3 divers descended, the darkness gradually enveloping them, with only the light from their flashlights flickering through the murky water. Lisa felt as though some invisible force was pulling her down. She had dived many times before, but never had she felt such terrifying stillness. The water around them was like a thick black curtain that couldn't be penetrated. Every sound was swallowed up by the suffocating silence. "Stay steady, Lisa," Jack said over the radio, his voice as calm and steady as always, but Lisa could feel the tension in every word. "Everything's fine." Mark led the way, his hand holding a flashlight, shining it down toward the wreck. The faint light stretched out along the hull of the ship. The wreck, according to reports, had sunk nearly a century ago and had never been found until today. Divers before them had vanished without a trace, and only the wreckage of the ship now floated in the ocean, like the shadows of the dead. As the group approached the hull of the ship, the massive shadow of the wreck loomed before them. Cracks, broken doors, and rusted steel frames, Everything was drowned in a terrifying silence. Jack could sense that something was wrong, but he couldn't pinpoint it. It felt like this ship was not just an ordinary wreck. There was something in the air, a heavy feeling he couldn't explain. "We need to get inside and check the compartments," Mark ordered, his eyes fixed on the broken doors, where small waves from the ocean blew in, creating strange swirling patterns. Lisa felt a shiver run down her spine as they moved into one of the dilapidated compartments. She could feel the bone-chilling cold in the air. The musty smell, the scent of rusted metal emanated from the ship's walls, but there was another smell, a strange one, like damp earth and iron. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed from deep within the ship, as though someone was tapping gently on the ship's side. Lisa jumped, but quickly shook her head, trying to reassure herself. "It's just the current." Jack turned to look at Lisa, his gaze sweeping over her face before stopping at a dark spot behind them. "Is everything all right, Lisa?" Before she could answer, a strong wave slammed into them from behind, causing all three of them to be pushed forward. Their flashlights flickered once more, and in that moment, they all saw a shadowy figure appear against the dark water. A humanoid shape, tall and clad in an old diving suit, but the face was indistinguishable. "Mark! Jack!" Lisa shouted into the radio, but her voice seemed to be absorbed by the ocean's stillness. She looked around, but the figure had disappeared. She wasn't sure what it was, but the cold sensation rising within her made it hard to breathe. "It must have been some kind of algae," Jack said, trying to stay calm, though his voice carried a hint of unease. Mark didn't respond, only continued swimming forward. As the trio ventured deeper into the wreck, they began to notice strange things. Fresh dive boot prints on the ship's floor. It couldn't be. The previous divers had disappeared long ago, right? "These aren't our prints," Mark whispered, his voice turning firm. "This isn't right." Suddenly, the light from their flashlights began to flicker and then went out completely. Everything around them was engulfed in darkness. Lisa felt the suffocating sensation of the darkness closing in, with no space to breathe. "We need to go back," Lisa screamed into the radio, but there was no response. As they tried to find their way out, another strong wave hit, causing the wreck to feel as though it might tear apart. In that moment of chaos, Lisa felt something whizzing behind her, a whisper, like wind, but enough to make her heart tighten. "Don't turn back. Don't turn back." The whisper continued to echo, and Lisa felt a cold shiver envelop her body. They couldn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain. Something within this wreck did not want them to leave. A sound echoed throughout the underwater space, like a wave crashing. Lisa could hardly breathe, her throat tightening as she realized that everything was not just an illusion. She felt as though someone was standing behind her, a presence watching her every move in the darkness. But when she turned around, there was only darkness. Nothing. No one. "Lisa, what's happening?" Jack called over the radio, his voice hoarse, filled with panic. He and Mark were swimming ahead, but it was clear neither of them could find the way out. Lisa quickly swam toward them, trying not to let fear take over. She knew she had to stay calm if she didn't want things to get worse. But just as she neared them, another sound rang out from inside the ship, a long screeching noise, as if something was scraping against the steel or someone was writhing inside. "Hurry up!" Mark shouted, but his voice was drowned out by a loud explosion from behind. Their lights flickered again and then went completely out. At this point, there was nothing but thick darkness. They could only rely on their instincts and the instructions from the radio to navigate. A chilling sensation swept over Lisa's body, as though some invisible hand was pulling her down. She quickly sighed, her hands fumbling around, searching for a way out. "Jack, Mark, where are you?" Lisa called out loudly over the radio, but there was no response. She turned around, feeling the silence engulf her. A wave of horror surged within her. She was alone. They had vanished. Suddenly, a faint light flickered in the distance. Lisa felt a little relief, but as she swam toward it, things grew strange again. The light didn't come from their flashlights, but from a pale yellow light somewhere deep within the ship, a place where no one could have placed a light. It was a light that didn't belong to them, a faint glow like an old lamp, inexplicable. She swam closer, only feeling the suffocating silence, as though she was swimming into an endless abyss. There was nothing but darkness around her and that weak light. As she swam past a series of ship compartments, Lisa suddenly noticed something strange. The doors of the ship, which had been broken earlier, were now closing by themselves, one by one, as though someone was operating them from inside. Suddenly, a figure appeared right in front of her. It was a diver, but something was wrong. The figure was wearing an old diving suit, but his face was nothing but a cracked mask, with dark, empty eye holes showing no signs of life. Lisa couldn't move. She could only stare at the face. The figure glided past her, moving into the darkness and disappearing. Lisa, her heart pounding, couldn't believe what she had just seen. "Lisa!" a voice called out. It was Jack. But when Lisa turned around, both of them were gone. Only she remained, alone in the endless darkness of the wreck, in a death that couldn't be explained. She turned around, wanting to escape this place, but suddenly, a bright red light flashed, the headlights of the wrecked ship flickering on and off. Lisa swam toward it, but this time, the figure appeared again, standing in front of her escape route. Lisa felt the coldness, as though it wasn't just a ghost, but something alive and powerful. The figure suddenly turned around, its dark eyes fixing on her, saying nothing, but its presence was enough to make her feel as though she no longer belonged there. The red light flashed again, and she realized the truth had been revealed. The divers before her had never truly left. They had become a part of this ship, of the ghost eternally trapped in the heart of the ocean. And now, Lisa had become one of them. When Lisa finally swam up to the surface, she found herself several meters away from the wreck. The space around her remained engulfed in silence, except for the gentle waves lapping against the ship's hull. She quickly removed her mask and put her communication device back on, her trembling hands unable to hold it steady. But there was no signal, no response. "Jack? Mark?" Her voice echoed through the radio, but only silence answered. She felt as if she were lost in a world with nothing but darkness and loneliness. A sense of numbness overtook her body, but she couldn't stop. The survival instinct urged her to swim to shore, but the exhaustion and fear seemed to have drained every ounce of strength from her. A few minutes later, she saw the lights of the rescue boat, and a faint glimmer of hope sparked in her heart. When she reached the rescue boat, she could only remain silent, staring out at the pitch-black sea, where the wreck quietly sank into the darkness. Lisa did not tell the rescue team about what she had experienced. She couldn't. No one could understand. The feeling was beyond words. The next day, when Lisa returned home, she continued to hear strange sounds echoing from the dark corners. Soft knocks, whispers, as if someone was watching her every step. Every night she dreamed of the ghosts beneath the sea and heard their calls echoing from the deep. Lisa knew she could never escape it. The divers before her had never truly died. They had only been trapped in an endless loop, forever haunted by that shipwreck. And now, she had become one of them, a part of the ocean that would never be at peace. Luke, a seasoned diver, had gained extensive experience through hundreds of dives beneath the ocean. However, no dive had made him feel as uneasy as this one. Together with Anna, a new colleague who had just joined the team and was always eager for daring challenges, they prepared for an expedition into an underwater cave that had never been explored before. This was a place that concealed secrets that, according to rumors, no one dared to reveal. Although Luke had heard many stories about divers disappearing while experimenting with this location, he didn't believe in those ghostly tales. He thought they were just the exaggerations of fearful people. Anna, with her curious nature and thirst for exploration, couldn't resist the allure of the uncharted waters. She always believed that the warnings were just exaggerations and that there was nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, Luke, though never showing any signs of concern, still felt something strange in his gut as they both stepped into this unexplored area. Even though they were fully equipped, there was an unsettling feeling, unexplainable, that lingered in his mind. As they dove down, the surroundings grew increasingly dark and cold. The ocean seemed to swallow up all the light from their dive lamps, making them feel as though an endless darkness surrounded them. And when they entered the cave, the first thing they noticed was the strange silence with no sea creatures in sight, only the sound of their breathing echoing through the cave, making the atmosphere even heavier. Luke felt like he wasn't just exploring a cave, but a place that contained death, a place where restless souls were waiting. With each step further into the cave, the tension between them grew, and the further they went, an unexplainable feeling began to manifest in Luke's mind. This wasn't just an ordinary dive. They were entering a hell beneath the ocean, where deadly secrets were buried forever. The light from Luke's dive lamp cut through the murky water, but it could not illuminate the entire space around them. The depth kept increasing, and the cave's interior gradually narrowed. They continued to move, but the atmosphere around them began to feel strange. The water began to cool, and a heavy sensation overcame everything. It wasn't the chill of the ocean, but something invisible, as though something down there was waiting for them. "Is something wrong, Luke?" Anna asked, her voice slightly trembling. She had dived in many places, but the suffocating feeling in this space was something she had never experienced. Luke looked around, trying to stay calm. "It's fine, Anna. It's probably just the depth and the cold water," he replied, but his voice wasn't firm enough to calm his unease. They continued to swim down, but the deeper they went, the more inexplicable everything became. The walls of the cave weren't made of simple rock, but of a strange material, smooth and covered with dark, ink-like algae. The dive lamps weren't strong enough to illuminate all the corners of the cave, and whenever the light barely spread, shadows flitted quickly past, making them both shudder. "We shouldn't go deeper," Luke whispered, the feeling that something was watching them rising in his chest. But Anna, with her curiosity and thirst for exploration, refused to stop. "We have to go in, Luke. We won't turn back if we don't find something," she insisted. Only a few minutes later, they discovered something strange. The body of a diver had gotten stuck in a deep corner of the cave. His body was deformed, and his eyes remained wide open as though staring directly at them. Blood and black mud obscured his appearance, but what frightened both of them the most was the overwhelming silence. There was no movement from the body, no trace suggesting that life had ever existed there. Anna swam closer, her eyes fixed on the corpse. He was still alive when he got stuck here, right? Her question echoed in the cold air, but as she looked into the diver's wide, unblinking eyes, she wasn't sure anymore. Luke pulled her back, his voice growing more tense. "Don't get too close. We don't know what happened to him. If we keep going deeper, we could encounter something that's beyond our understanding." But Anna didn't listen. She swam closer, trying to touch the diver's body to investigate further. A gust of cold air suddenly rushed out from inside the cave, sweeping away all their attention. In that moment, their dive lamps flickered and then went completely out, leaving them both in total darkness. "Luke! Luke!" Anna shouted in panic, but in the darkness, her voice seemed to be immediately swallowed. They couldn't see anything anymore. The water grew colder, and a heavier sensation arose, as though the entire underwater space was trying to bury them forever. "Get out of here, now!" Luke screamed. But in that moment, they heard a strange sound, a heavy breathing, as if someone was behind them. A breath that wasn't human, but that of something deep, more terrifying, not a living creature. They turned around, and that's when they saw the unimaginable. A massive shadow was moving closer, its eyes like bottomless black pits, and each step it took seemed to swallow the space around them. In that moment, both of them knew that they weren't just facing an unexplained cave, but an existence that had been buried and was now trying to return. Luke and Anna stood frozen in the darkness, unable to move, unable to breathe. A cold sensation filled their bodies, and a strange presence from behind seemed to draw closer. The heavy breathing, like that of a gigantic creature, echoed through the water, merging with the silent atmosphere of the cave. Luke felt his heart stop. He couldn't see anything, only feel the dense darkness enveloping everything. "Anna!" Luke gasped into the radio, but there was no response. Anna still didn't answer, and in the darkness, her breath seemed to have been swallowed immediately. The darkness grew thicker, as though some invisible force was pulling them deeper, and the space around them began to change. Their dive lamps had been off for a while, but in their place, a dim light slowly appeared from somewhere deep at the bottom of the sea. Neither of them knew what it was, but the light grew larger, like a massive eye opening in the darkness, waiting to swallow everything. Suddenly, the light from Anna's dive lamp flickered back on, but it only illuminated a small area around them. And then, in that moment, they saw a massive dark shadow swimming closer. It was a gigantic creature with large fins, a grotesque body, and dark eyes staring directly at them. Its fins and patches of skin shimmered in the dim light, but its appearance was something that no human could imagine. "What is that?" Anna gasped, her eyes wide with terror. Luke couldn't respond. The sight was too horrifying, too terrifying to comprehend. The creature was not a fish or a normal sea creature. It had the appearance of something forgotten at the bottom of the ocean, buried for centuries, and now it had awakened. But the most horrifying thing wasn't the creature itself, but the figures behind it. The missing divers from before were floating in the water, their eyes wide open, emotionless, only filled with emptiness. These divers had become a part of this darkness, forever trapped beneath the ocean. And those ghosts now were moving closer to them. "We need to get out of here now," Luke shouted, but his voice was too weak to overpower the terrifying sound that dominated everything. He grabbed Anna's hand, but a strong wave suddenly hit, pushing them both toward the deeper part of the cave. As they struggled to swim out, an invisible force pulled them back, as though the ghosts at the bottom of the sea didn't want them to leave. Anna's scream echoed through the radio, but Luke couldn't see her anymore. The darkness swallowed everything again. The missing divers, now part of this hell, were still watching them. "Anna! Anna!" Luke shouted, but all he received was an eerie silence. He could feel the presence of something very close, but he dared not turn around. As he continued to swim toward the cave entrance, the light from Anna's dive lamp flickered out again. A strange sound echoed underwater, like a chuckle from a very deep, distant place. The sound reverberated through the underwater space, creating an unbearable, chilling noise. And then, in the final moment, Luke saw Anna's shadow in the darkness. She was there, but her eyes had turned into black pits, devoid of light, devoid of life. She turned around, but it was something that was no longer human. And when those eyes looked at him, Luke knew one thing. He had gotten too close to secrets that no one should ever know. When Luke finally surfaced, he gasped for air, his hands trembling as he tightly gripped the dive lamp. The faint light from the rescue boat's spotlight flickered in the distance, but the moment he escaped from the cave, he felt like he was stepping out of an inescapable nightmare. The cold water embraced him, but the sensation wasn't the chill of the ocean, it was the coldness of death. Anna's shadow still haunted his mind, her dark, hollow eyes, that lifeless stare, as if something had taken possession of her. He couldn't escape that gaze. It clung to him, disturbing his thoughts every moment. He had left her at the bottom of the sea, and now she had become a part of that darkness, a part of the souls that could never find peace. When the rescue boat hauled him aboard, the rescue team didn't know what to do with him. There were questions about Sarah, about Anna, but he couldn't speak. What he had seen was too horrific, too unbelievable. No words could describe what they had encountered at the bottom of the ocean. All he knew was that no one could save Anna anymore. A few days later, when Luke returned to his normal life, he couldn't shake off the haunting visions. Every night he dreamed of Anna. She was still standing there, her dark, hollow eyes staring at him, saying nothing, only silence surrounding them. He received strange messages from Anna's phone number, unanswered questions, strange words like an invitation. Why haven't I been saved? Those images never left him. The whispers in the night, the dark eyes in the shadows, they all continued to haunt him. And in his nightmares, he knew a part of him had been dragged down to the bottom of the sea, never to return. The cold water surged into Ryan's body as he jumped from the rescue boat, his eyes dark in the night's shadows. Though he had dived hundreds of times, he couldn't shake the strange feeling this time. An invisible anxiety, as if something was in the water, something he couldn't see but could feel. "Ryan, can you hear me?" Alex's voice came through the radio, but Ryan only responded with a nod. They were off the coast of Alaska, where a World War II shipwreck was believed to have sunk decades ago. Ryan and his team had been tasked with inspecting the wreck, a routine job for seasoned divers. But what scared them wasn't the ship itself, but the rumors about previous divers who had disappeared when trying to approach the area. Ryan looked out over the sea, where the dark water stretched endlessly, with only the faint light from the weak beam of the spotlight behind them. "I feel like something's not right," he whispered to himself. His light steps moved across the surface of the water, with gentle waves lapping at his feet. But it was all just the illusion of what was called peace. As Ryan swam down, the wreck slowly came into view. An old ship, cracked and worn, like a corpse abandoned at the ocean's bottom. "Let's get inside the ship," Alex signaled from above. Ryan and the team approached the wreck, and a chill ran down his spine. It felt as though this ship wasn't just an ordinary wreck, but a living machine, something that had been dormant beneath the water for far too long, and now it had awakened. Everything around him began to feel hazy and eerie. In the dim light, strange images gradually appeared. Decayed steel frames, shattered windows. But strangely, there were no signs of life. No sea creatures, no human shadows. "We need to get inside right now," Alex said, but his voice seemed to tremble, as if he, too, could feel something behind this metal wall. Everything around Ryan began to have an indescribable, strange feeling. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed from deep within the ship, as if someone was breathing underwater. Ryan looked back, but saw nothing. The sounds, not from the water, but from the ship itself. A sound too familiar yet, with an eerie chill. "We need to get out immediately," Ryan whispered into the radio, a rising sense of unease crashing like waves. But now, it seemed the wreck wanted to hold them back, not letting them escape. The light from Ryan's dive lamp gleamed in the pitch-black space, but as he moved into the wreck, everything began to change. The interior of the ship was eerily quiet, the air damp and heavy, like a tomb that had never been opened. Rusted steel plates, cracks on the walls, and the pungent smell of decaying seawater filled the air, making Ryan feel as though he was stepping into a place that didn't belong in this world. "Be careful. We don't know anything about the structure of this ship." Alex's voice came through the radio, his tone laced with worry. But no one in the team responded to him. The dim light from the team's dive lamps was the only thing lighting the path ahead, but even they couldn't dispel the darkness that enveloped the ship. Ryan moved cautiously through the nooks and crannies, feeling as though something was watching him. But when he turned around, it was only the cold, metallic walls. Suddenly, a faint sound, like a soft clink, echoed from behind him. Ryan spun around immediately, but there was nothing but the dense darkness. He exhaled sharply, trying to reassure himself. "Is something wrong, Ryan?" Alex called again. "It's just the sound of the waves," Ryan replied. But inside, his doubts continued to grow. The team continued to move deeper into the ship. The compartments were dark, with shattered windows and overturned objects. Each step they took echoed through the vast space, and every sound made them feel like they were being watched. The situation no longer felt like a simple survey. When they reached the main compartment, Ryan felt something very strange. The objects inside the ship were not as damaged by seawater as he had expected. The chairs, tables, and even the lanterns were intact, as if someone had just left without cleaning up. But what made him feel particularly uneasy were the strange footprints on the ship's floor. They weren't their own. They were fresh, clear, and led further into the ship. "We're not the only ones here," Ryan whispered, the coldness from the footprints making him shudder. Alex moved closer, examining the footprints closely. "No way," he muttered. "These are fresh, and they're not from living people." The silence inside the ship felt like a cage, one that could make even the strongest person feel suffocated. Every step they took seemed to cause a sound to echo in the endless space, and the strange footprints led them to a locked room, with the door secured from the inside. "This is not right," Emily said, her voice trembling. She had been with them on the dive, but had never felt fear like this before. Ryan moved closer to the door. A strange feeling overwhelmed his mind, as though someone was waiting for them behind the door. He wasn't sure if it was just a trick of the ocean or something that still lived in the wreck. But what he did know was they couldn't stop now. When the door opened, everything seemed to pause in a moment of stillness. The small room on the ship contained old, faded photos of the previous divers. The photos weren't memories of those who had passed, but a warning, as if the people in the photos were watching them from afar. The empty eyes in those photos stared at them, as if watching their every move. Ryan felt his blood run cold. A shiver ran down his spine as he realized these people weren't just missing divers. They were a part of this ship, the ghosts forever trapped at the bottom of the sea. When he turned around, a sound came from behind them. The door had closed on its own. A deep sigh echoed in the silent air. Ryan turned again and saw a shadowy figure standing at the end of the hallway. The shadowy figure still stood there, silent in the darkness of the ship's hallway. The light from Ryan's dive lamp flickered weakly, but it was clear that the shape was not an illusion. It had a human form, but the face was indistinct, unrecognizable, and a cold breeze emanated from it, making the air even more suffocating. Ryan felt as though that shadow knew every move he made. "Alex! Emily!" Ryan whispered through the radio, but there was no response. They had vanished, as if sucked into the darkness in that moment. Ryan turned around, but he could no longer see their figures. A shiver ran through him. That shadow wasn't human, but something that had been here for a long time, or perhaps it was waiting for them. A numbness began to invade Ryan's body. He wanted to turn back, to swim out of the wreck immediately, but an invisible force seemed to be holding him in place. That shadow. It wasn't moving, but it seemed to be claiming the space around him, compelling him to move toward it. Despite trying to turn back, the door behind him slammed shut, as though someone was holding it tight. He couldn't escape. Panic began to rise in him. Suddenly, the light from his dive lamp flickered and then went out completely. Everything around him plunged into utter darkness. A deep sigh echoed from behind. Ryan turned around, only to see black, lifeless eyes staring at him through the murky water. Those weren't the eyes of a human. Those eyes were deep, endless, as though they contained another world. An indescribable sensation overwhelmed Ryan's body. He began to feel as though he was being drawn into those eyes. "You will never escape." The voice echoed in his head, but it didn't come through the radio. It didn't come from anyone in the team. It was a cold, hollow voice, devoid of emotion, as if it had existed long before he arrived here. A curse that bound them. Ryan couldn't move. He felt the presence invading every corner of his body, every cell being drawn toward the shadow. A strong wave hit, knocking him off balance, and in that moment, he saw it. A face, blurry but clear, floating in the darkness. It was the face of a diver, someone who had died long ago at the bottom of this sea. His face was no longer intact, blood and seawater mingling, but his eyes were wide open, staring directly at Ryan. And then, as if the shadow had come to life, it moved toward Ryan, every step causing the temperature around him to drop drastically. Ryan wanted to scream, to swim toward the compartment door, but those eyes kept watching his every movement. Suddenly, from a corner of the ship, strange sounds echoed. Footsteps, whispers, as if the entire ship was waking from a long slumber. Other figures began to appear, standing silently in the darkness, faces indistinct, eyes hollow. Ryan couldn't breathe, his throat tightening, but he realized a cruel truth. They were trapped here forever. The divers before them never truly died. They were just kept here, in this wreck, forever. As every second passed, Ryan realized he would never escape. The dark shadow slowly approached, and in the final moment, he heard the whispers from the lost souls. "We never leave, and neither will you." The light from his dive lamp flickered out, and then everything plunged into darkness. When the rescue team finally approached the wreck, there was no sign of the divers. The ship remained there, sunk in the darkness of the ocean, like a forgotten corpse. There were no signs of Ryan, Alex, or Emily. Only the still sea, as if it had swallowed everything. No sound, no trace. "No one's here," one of the rescue team members said, his voice wavering with unease. He looked around, then at the ship again, unable to explain why it made him feel like there was an invisible force holding them back, not allowing them to get closer. As they approached the wreck area, their spotlight illuminated a section around the ship's hull. Rusty metal plates, broken compartments, and nothing but dense silence. They searched everywhere, but there was no one. No trace. No response. The next day, news of Ryan and the diver team's disappearance was reported. The press spoke about the wreck, but no one dared approach it. The stories of the divers who had disappeared long ago when they ventured near this area had become a silent warning. The name of the wreck became an obsession. Fishermen and divers in the area no longer dared mention it. They said that something lay at the bottom of the sea, something that never sleeps, and once you step in, no one can escape. The divers from before, now a part of the eternal darkness, quietly waited for the next to come. And every night, divers or fishermen still hear faint breaths in the sea breeze. Black, lifeless eyes, seemingly watching them from the depths of the sea, where the wreck had lain still for many years. Ryan and his team never returned, and now they had become a part of the eternal depths of the sea. The ghosts at the bottom of the sea would never rest, and they would never escape that haunting. Thank you for joining me in today's video as we ventured into terrifying tales beneath the sea. Each story holds unsettling secrets and haunting encounters that brave divers had to face, and I hope they've brought you moments full of suspense and thrill. If you enjoy stories like these, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss any exciting videos in the future. Every time you click subscribe, it's a huge encouragement that helps me continue bringing you mysterious and chilling stories. And if you found this video interesting, feel free to drop a like to show your support and help us share these stories with more people. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts on today's stories. Did they leave you feeling haunted? Or do you have other creepy stories you'd like to share? I'm always excited to read and chat with you all. Thank you once again for accompanying CreepLine. I'll see you in the next tales. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you'll always be the first to discover new mysteries. Wishing you a peaceful night, and remember, all secrets are hidden beneath the sea.